Okay. Number one. There's certainly more than one way to do this problem, but probably the easiest and quickest way is to just take the numbers from this table and plug them in. If I plug in a 0, my outcome should be a negative 0.3. When I looked at these, if I put in a 0, basically these would go away. And I noticed that B and D would have ended up with a positive 0.3. That eliminated B and D as possibilities. Then I went to 2. N equals 2 times 2 minus 0.3. 2 times 2 is 4. Minus 0.3 is 3.7. If I'd have plugged 2 in here, 2 minus 0.3 would have given me 1.7. So the correct answer had to be A.
Question.
Yes.
So we use Common Core, right?
Well, sort of, yes.
Okay, because I was just wondering because like they're teaching new standards that I heard on the news story this morning on a third grade test. And one of the questions was 5 times 3, and it asked to solve it. And the kid put 5 plus 5 plus 5 equals 15, and the teacher marked it wrong because he forgot to put all the things too.
That's deep, man.
Just can't help how they're teaching it.
I don't even know
Okay.
how that got on the news.
Number 2. The easiest way to do this is actually just solve this equation. You could have plugged these in if you didn't know how to solve it, but it's easier just to solve it. We'd start by adding 7 to both sides. It'd give me a negative 2x equals 19. I could already eliminate 2 possibilities because I know my answer is going to be negative, because I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 2. 19 divided by a negative 2 is a negative 9.5, which is why this one is A. Number 3, Allison earns $40,000 base salary, a 15% commission. We have to remember to move that decimal 2 places when we're talking about a percentage. Times her sales. And she earned $70,000 last year. If I subtract 40,000 from both sides, it's going to leave me 0.15x is equal to 30,000. And I divide both sides by 0.15. When I divided by 0.15, I really didn't have to do this division because I knew my number was going to get a lot bigger because I'm dividing by numbers less than 1. The correct answer for this was 200,000. Number 4, when I go to solve this, in general, when I'm dealing with inequalities, when I look at this variable, I notice the value in front of it is positive. So my inequality is not going to change directions. So I could have immediately eliminated C and D as choices. I would have added 3 to both sides. I'd have had 4x is less than or equal to a negative 2. I really wouldn't have had to work it out any further because my answer is going to have a negative in it. The answer is A. When I divide a negative 2 by 4, I get x is less than or equal to a negative 0.5. Questions? Number 5, you simply would have had to multiply both sides by a negative 4. These would have canceled out, leaving me y equals a negative 8. Number 6, much like number 1, I did notice, however, that I didn't need to plug in 0 because all the outputs on 0 were what? -10. So I didn't need to plug it in. So I looked at the next one. All the inputs are 4. So I put 0.25 times 4 minus 10. 0.25 times 4 was 1. 1 minus 10 is a -9. That eliminated C and D as possibilities because they came up with -11. Then I plugged in the 8. 0.25 times 8 minus 10. 0.25 times 8 was 2. 2 minus 10 is -8, which is why A is the correct answer. Number 7, since they're asking me to find out which inequality represents this graph, I really need to know that the graph represents the inequality of x is greater than or equal to 1/2. Again, I could have eliminated C and D because these are going to be less than or equal to because the coefficient is positive. If I look at A, 2x plus 1 is greater than or equal to 0. I'd end up subtracting 1 from both sides. Is there any way this one's the answer? Is it possible? What would be filled in on the graph? Would it be a positive half? It'd actually be at a -1/2, so it's not A. The answer had to be what? B. And the reason it's B is because if I added 1 to both sides, I'd have 2x is greater than or equal to 1, and then I would have divided both sides by 2. X is greater than or equal to 1/2. Number 8, Alessandro currently has $2,400 in his account, and he saves $250 per month. B currently has $1,750 in her account, and she saves $350 per month. How much more money? When they're asking how much more, what are they asking you to do? They're asking me to subtract. So I know that I'm going to have to find out how much each one has and subtract those two. They said after 12 months. So in each one of these, I'm going to replace the M that I've put in there with 12. I have 2,400 plus 250 times 12. I have 1,750 plus 350 times 12. When I work this out, this one actually came out to 5,400. When I work this one out, it came up to 5,950. And I end up subtracting the 5,400 from it, which is going to give me 550, which is why C is the correct answer. Number 9, Omar mows lawns for $9.25 an hour. He spends $7.50. Spends, is that going to be added or subtracted? Definitely going to be subtracted. $9.25 per hour should say $9.25 times H. It's not A or B. These are his hours and how much he's making. This is showing he's adding $7.50, but we just said that spend means he had to be taking it away. That's why the correct answer is D. When you get to a problem like this tomorrow, it is going to say, write and solve an equation. In this particular problem, it didn't necessarily ask me to write it, but they're easier to write and solve it than it is to do it any other way. A computer repairman charges an initial fee of $100, an hourly fee of $75. Says Mr. Billings paid the repairman $475. That would be my equation. I would subtract 100 from both sides. It's going to leave me 75x is equal to 375. And I would divide both sides by 75. And I would find out that x was equal to 5, which is really 5 hours. On number 11, you actually had to solve both of these equations to do this piece. So you had 2a minus 8 equals 4. To solve it, you'd start by adding 8, which would have given me 2a equals 12. And I'd have divided both sides by 2. A would have been equal to 6. I'd have had to do the same thing for b. 3b minus 8 equals 10. I would have added 8 to both sides. 3b is equal to 18. I'd have divided both sides by 3. b was equal to 6. They said find the value of a plus b. A was 6. B was 6, so a plus b is 12. Questions? Number 12, draw a number line to represent the inequality. When you're drawing the number line to represent this, I'd ask that you at least put 4, one number above it, and one number below it. Don't need to have a bunch of numbers on there, but you should always include one above and one below. Because it can be equal, it is telling me that it would be a filled-in circle on the 4. X is on the smaller side of the inequality, so x is getting less than, which means I am going to be going to the left. Questions on 12? This says x is greater than 3.5 in the graph. And they're asking, what could I put in this space so that the inequality would look like this? In other words, they're asking me, what number am I going to divide by 2 that's going to give me 3/2? In order to solve that, I'd multiply both sides by 2. I could have done 3.5 as well. 3.5 times 2 is 7, which is why this would have to be 7. 7 divided by 2 is going to give me 3.5, which is what's represented there on the graph. Questions on 13? Number 14. Jezeku sells handbags for $50 each. She spends $4. If she's spending $4, is that coming off of her profit or adding to it? Coming off. $4 per handbag. And she also rents a store. Is that being added or coming off? It's being subtracted. If she's renting the store, she's paying for the use of that storefront. This is certainly one expression that you could have written. The other thing that you could have done is you could have taken 50 minus 4 to start with to find out that she's going to make $46 on each bag. So you could have written 46 times x, that's the profit, minus the $1,000 that she's paying for rent. Either one of those would have worked. By the way, what is 50x minus 4x? 46x, and either is going to come out the same.
Is it okay if you didn't put an X before?
It's okay if you didn't put an x, so long as you put what? Whatever variable you used for the 50, you've got to use the same thing on the 4. If you use B, you better use B. If you use H for handbags, you better use H, because they are the same number. Yes.
So could would a inequality be considered an expression because it is not an equal sign?
No. An inequality is considered an inequality. To be an expression, it can't have an equation or an inequality. Okay. Jenya paid $40 a month for a cell phone, plus $1.25 for each international text message. They want to know what her bill is if she sent 50, so they're going to replace X with 50. This becomes 40 plus 1.25 times 50. 40 plus, and I think this is 6250. 1.25 times 50. 6250. And if I add 40 and 6250, I get 102.50. So her phone bill is going to run her $102.50. I wouldn't think so, no. Okay. I'm going to tell you that I think that this particular problem was misplaced. I think later on you're going to really know how to do it. I've removed it from the test. Okay? Won't be one like this. But I'm going to tell you it wasn't hard, and I want you to see how to do it.
Okay, David.
Okay.
Okay, David, no.
Look, to get from 1250 to 16, they're adding 350. To get from 16 to 1950, they're adding 350. To get from 1950 to 23, they're adding 350. So each hour, the rate is 350. If each hour is 350, then the initial fee had to be 1250 minus the 350, which is 9. That was the initial fee. The hourly rate we just said was what? 350. You actually use these two numbers to write the equation. Y is equal to 350 per hour, or X, plus the $9 initial fee. If I plug 1 back into it, this will produce $12.50. If I plug 2 in it, it'd give me $16. If I plug 3 in it, it would give me $19.50. Everybody see that? What is 2 times 350? 7. What's 7 plus 9? 16. If I plugged 4 in it, 4 times 350? 14. 14 plus 9? 23.
Is that an N number?
H. I used an H, but you could have used an X, a Y, a Z. I used H to represent the number of what? Hours. Okay? Number 19. Cole paid $24 for 2 calculators. And 1 pack of pens. And the pack of pens, they said, were $6. Kay paid $45 for 3 calculators and 2 packs of pens. How much more? What are they asking me to do? I'm going to have to solve the 2 equations and subtract. How much more did she pay for the calculator? So I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. I now have 18 equals 2x. I'm going to divide both sides by 2. X is equal to 9. When I come over here, I'm actually going to subtract 12 because 2 times 6 is 12. 33 equals 3x. I'm going to divide both sides by 3. X is equal to 11. 11 minus 9 is, so she paid $2 per calculator more. Questions on 19? Number 20. They gave me an equation and said for what value of x is y equal to a negative 16. If they told me what y is equal to, replace y and solve it then for x. To solve this for x, I'm going to add 4 to both sides. Negative 16 plus 4 is a negative 12. I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 8. A negative divided by a negative is going to make a, so I actually have 12 over 8, which will simplify. Both are divisible by 4 goes into 12 3 times. 4 goes into 8 twice. So you could have had 3 over 2. You could have had 1 and a half. You could have had 1.5. All of those would have been valid answers. Questions on 20? Number 21. A base salary, $125,000. 4% commission. Remember that when you're dealing with a percent, you move the decimal 2 places. Other sales. A bonus being added on, $25,000. Last year was more than $350,000. If it was more than, then it had to be what? Greater than $350,000. These are on the same side of the inequality, so I could put them together. When I add them together, I get 150,000 plus 0.04x is greater than 350,000. I would subtract 150,000 from both sides. I'd now have 0.04x is greater than 200,000. And I would divide both sides by 0.04. More than. When I divide this into that, it's going to be 5 million. In other words, she made more than $5 million worth of sales to earn what? $350,000. Yeah. I want that job too. $350,000 a year compared to what I make.
Why can't a job